Hello, everyone. There is Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Mukta.
How are you?
Good. Glad to see you. How are you?
You too. I'm good too. It's so incredibly cold today. It's insane.
After we had this really warm weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so hello, guys. Thank you for joining us to Unraveling Chronic Pain with Anna and me. My name is Mukta. I'm a physical therapist who works exclusively with pelvic health patients in New York City. And Anna.
And I'm Anna Holtzman. I am a chronic pain recovery therapist and coach, also in New York City. We're neighbors.
Yes, we are. So last time, this is episode number 4, and today's topic I'm going to reveal in a little bit. Some of you must have seen it in my stories and Anna's stories. We spoke about self-love or acceptance last time, and Anna kind of, created this connection between the cultural conditioning and our difficulty in reaching that, self-love or acceptance. And kind of like, when we think about self-love or acceptance, it kind of evokes a disgust response or a feeling of like creepiness. Like, come on, like, I'm not supposed to, what have I done? Am I special? Why should I love myself? So kind of, Anna kind of broke that understanding exactly what self-love is and why cultural conditioning has always made us to think about, pushing through and hustling and worthy of any reward only after accomplishing something. So we're going to continue to talk about that cultural conditioning, and today's topic is for perfectionism. So let's understand exactly what it is.
Yeah, well, perfectionism, I think, most people are familiar with perfectionism, and something that is super, super common that I see both in my own journey as a human being and also in my work with chronic pain clients is the perfectionism in healing. And this is a big part of my own journey, and it's an ongoing part because, as you mentioned, perfectionism is part of this cultural conditioning we've received that we're not worthy until we are pleasing to someone else. And so that perfectionism naturally creeps into the healing process, and we can get caught in these spirals of like, I'm not doing my healing correctly, I'm not doing it right, I'm not healing fast enough, I'm not healed enough, I'm not perfectly healed. And all of those thoughts are pain triggers because they get our nervous system all tensed up, and they are, they make us feel contracted, and they contribute to nervous system stress, which can manifest as more pain. So it becomes this lovely cycle of perfectionism and pain.
Yeah, great point. And I think it's also like, everybody, this word perfectionism, I think is pretty popular, and everybody, speaks about it, and we even try to keep a check on it. But I think it creeps in because we are supposed to do a good job, and where is the ceiling of the good job? We don't realize, and then we end up comparing ourselves with the other people. And it kind of like becomes a very complex issue. We don't realize that we are pursuing perfectionism. Like I never thought that I was that kind of a person until my therapist pointed it out, and I was like, oh my god, like I didn't even realize it, and it was
Yeah.
creeping in. And yeah, it was.
It's true. There's so many, as you said, there's like layers and layers and layers to it. And we can beat up on ourselves and get perfectionistic with ourselves about like, oh, I'm not counteracting my perfectionism enough. Oh, I'm being perfectionist again. Oh, let me like get angry at myself about that
Yeah,
too. And I like to think about it as like the petals of a flower.
hmm.
And there's a story that I read in one of the many books that has been helpful to me on this ongoing journey of unlearning perfectionism is a book called The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. And in it, he tells this story, which I thought was such a great example of how we can tend to our many flower petals of self-criticism and perfectionism. He talked about a therapy group that he was leading. Um, in it was a therapy group about self-acceptance, and so one member of the group had this anger issue, and Mr. Brandon said to him, "Oh, can you accept your anger issue?" And the guy said, "No, I can't accept that I have an anger issue." And the therapist said, "Oh, well, okay. Well, can you accept your rejection of your anger issue?" And the guy said, "No, I can't accept my rejection of my anger." And the therapist said, "Oh, okay. Well, can you accept your refusal to accept your rejection of your anger?" And at that point, the guy kind of, broke into laughter and said, "Yeah, okay, fine, sure. I can accept that layer, that pedal. And I really like to use that example with myself when I inevitably find myself in these layers of self-criticism that we all do.
That's such a good story. And exactly, this is like so layered, and it just wrapped around beautifully. And we kind of hide our so-called negative emotions, and and I think perfectionism is also considered a negative emotion. It used to be like, oh yeah, that person like does the job so perfectly, but I think lately it's been considered like a negative. It has a negative connotation. So people kind of hide it, like, no, I'm just supposed to do a good job, and I'm just bettering myself. I'm just like, I'm just in pursuit of like self-betterment, and those kind of things we tell ourselves. And you're right, it can quickly go into this, with people who are in the journey of healing the chronic pain. Are they doing enough? Like, one of very close friends who is, dealing with chronic pain, he continuously talks about, I don't know when to stop. Sometimes when he's in a very severe bout of pain, I speak to him and I tell him, just don't do anything. Try to distract.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about that, that as well. But just coming to the point, like how it becomes so difficult for people who are in such deep pain, they do not know when to stop, or they have done enough. They think of it as a personal failure, that they have not done enough to cure their pain, and it's in their hands.
Yeah, and we can even get angry at ourselves for not being able to back off. It's like we're telling ourselves, "Oh, I'm not doing enough." And then this other voice is like, "Oh, you're supposed to be gentle with yourself. You're not being gentle enough with yourself." So again, it's like, it's the layers. And okay, the layers are there. We've all got them. Is there, like, what's the outermost layer that you can notice? And can you feel any amount of gentleness for that layer? And if you can, consider that that's like a minor miracle, given all of these centuries and generations of cultural conditioning that we're really working against when we're in this process of unlearning perfectionism.
Can you explain a little bit about the layers you are mentioning? Is it like those, like a basic emotion and then the refusal or your rejection of that? Is that
well, just how, like, there's the self-criticism. There's that layer, the self-criticism that might be saying, you're not doing enough for your healing. You need to be working harder at your healing. And then as you get deeper into this work, you're probably going to start to hear, oh, that self-criticism is contributing to your pain. So it's really good to be gentle with yourself. And then you get into like, oh crap, I'm not being gentle with myself. I'm doing something wrong. And it just can easily build on there. And the more we focus on how we're doing something wrong by criticizing ourselves, it just, continues to wind itself.
Great point. What would you say in that case? Like, one thing that we can do, it could be a bigger, longer practice as well, but like, how can we break this conditioning, or how can we make ourselves aware that this kind of a conflict going on?
Well, one way I think is what you just said is bringing awareness to it, noticing it, noticing, oh, okay, I'm in a conflict. I hear that there's like all these layers of self-criticism going on. Um, and I always recommend bringing some humor to it, like, because
Yeah.
it is kind of as miserable as it can feel when we've got all those layers of self-criticism going on. There is some humor to it at some point when you see like, wow, this voice is criticizing me for not working hard enough. And then this other voice is criticizing me for not giving myself a break and not being gentle enough with myself. And then this other voice is criticizing that voice. It's like, there's some comedy to this
You're right.
difficulty.
Yeah. And sometimes, like for me, what has worked is just recognizing that they are distinct voices.
Yeah.
Because just thinking that it's a different voice, one thing is telling me to do one thing, and I think that's when I become aware of that conflict in my head. It's like, oh wow, like these two voices are telling me to go in a completely opposite direction. It's
Yeah.
like, okay. And then I choose which one I want to listen to, if
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And another little message to add to that is to think about it as like, this is not perfectionism is not a personal failure. It's a cultural conditioning that's been around for a really, really long time. As a collective culture, I I think we're in the beginnings, a lot of us, of realizing like, I grew up learning that this was a good thing, but maybe it's not actually serving me so well. And so as a collective, we are stumbling our way through unlearning it together. And it's a messy process that
Yeah.
we're all in.
Yeah. You're right. There's going to be some overcorrection, some
Yeah.
undercorrection. Kind of like we'll find our way to the balance, I guess. I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Any takeaways for today?
Yeah. Do we have time for like a really short physical practice?
Do it. Yeah.
Okay. So here's something that a former coach of mine who practices a modality called generative somatics, they taught me this practice. I don't know if if it comes from generative somatics, but anyway, I didn't make this up. But the practice is you make a fist with one hand, and that fist represents some pattern that you're trying to undo. It might be your pain pattern, it might be the pattern of perfectionism or self-criticism. And you make that fist as tight as that pattern feels, like it's tightly wound. And now with the other hand, you try to pry it open and just notice what the fist wants to do in response to that prying hand.
Resist.
Yeah, yes, that's the common response. So can like let go of that, shake it out, and then the part two to this exercise is to make the fist again, and it represents the very same thing, that tightly held pattern. And this time with the other hand, the invitation is to come in and gently but firmly just cradle and support the fist. And just hang out there for a moment and notice what the fist wants to do in response to that. And I'm curious what you're noticing.
Yeah, it's like it's not resisting. That's at least like okay. It
Yeah.
it's kind of accepting the support the other hand is giving.
Yeah. And, if this practice speaks to you who are watching, you can try it like again and again over time. Maybe the first time you'll feel nothing. This is totally normal. Maybe the next time it's like, it's a trust building exercise, is what it is. It's a building self trust.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. Like, it's kind of like making me think as well, which is perfectly, the stronger we are holding a pattern, and if we just kind of like try to just like,
Yeah.
break it, it's gonna get even stronger. And that's what we usually see until,
Yeah.
we kind of like go with a gentler approach and give that support, that acceptance, like, okay, this is a strong pattern, and just be with it. I think
Yeah.
that's how I see this practice, and like those couple of minutes, those quick minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. The paradox is that if we can accept the outermost layer of all of our constrictions, that's where things start softening. When we're fighting against the constrictions, they're going to fight back. And it's a tricky dance. And it's tricky for me too. And I've been at this for a while.
This is such a great practice. I think I'm going to use it with my patients as well. This is like simple enough to use it in the clinic. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Absolutely, Anna. This was great.
Thanks so much for hanging out.
Yeah.
Chatting.
So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to DM us, either one of us, questions, any topics that you want to hear talk us about, anything that you would like to discuss. Just feel free to send us any DM or comment here. We are going to be meeting next week again. I have been thinking about talking about, we discussed this, like different phases of pain, like, when you are kind of like more manageable, but then kind of like going towards the peak and then it's peaking. Yeah. So wanted to talk to you about, a lot of people talk about acceptance, distraction, and denial. And like when each of these things we should try to work on. Because I know acceptance when you are at the peak of your chronic pain is not going to work.
Right.
So would love to talk about this and understand it a little bit more depending on different phases. So we are more prepared because we know chronic pain is, let's be real, it's not going to go away like that. Poof. We are talking about, and it's not linear, the recovery is not linear. So how to manage those ups and downs better. So maybe.
Yes, I look forward to having that conversation next week.
All right. That's awesome. Yeah. So see you guys next week, Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time.
See you then.
Bye,
Take
Anna.
care. Bye.